Welcome back to Behind the Ballot. I'm your host, Mikkel Jenkins.
This is co-host Muhammad Alec chiming in as well for our first special guest episode. Mikhail, why don't you introduce our esteemed guest of the day?
So I am excited to have our inaugural special guest here on Behind the Ballot. Jamel Curtis Hawley is a dedicated public servant with over 20 years in local and state government experience. He holds a BS in criminal justice from New Jersey City University and an MPA from Keene University, known for his dynamic advocacy on fiscal responsibility, youth recreation, and open space preservation. Hawley's leadership builds bridges across communities. At 22, in 2001, he became New Jersey's youngest chief of staff for a legislator. By 2004, at 25, he was Union County's youngest councilman at large in Roselle. He became Roselle's youngest mayor at 32 in 2011 and joined the New Jersey General Assembly in 2015 as the first African-American for the 20th Legislative District, winning re-election in 2017 and 2019, earning the Legislator of the Year award from the NAACP in 2018 and Legislative Trailblazer Leadership Award in 2021. Beyond politics, he was a director for public works for Irvington Township, an advisor and continuing friend to Robert F. Kennedy, now Health and Human Services Secretary for the United States. Today, as president and CEO of JCH Strategy Group, he specializes in public relations, political media, and advocacy and economic development, cannabis policy and environmental stewardship, housing, infrastructure, health, and nonprofits. Hawley continues leveraging his experience for a lasting impact. He's the grandson of the late Yvonne Hawley and the brother of Jesse, a former NFL wide receiver for the Patriots and Cowboys. So, Jamel, thank you for coming on today. We really want to talk about the MAHA movement. Really want to start with the genesis of the MAHA movement. So we know that it officially launched after RFK Jr. paused his independent presidential run in August 2024 and endorsed Trump. What conversations or events catalyzed transforming that moment into a sustained public health strategy?
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and thank you for Mohammed for inviting me to participate in what I think is a interesting podcast that you all have Behind the Ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley, for doing our best.
I've watched and listened into some of the things you guys have online, and I find it interesting. But the most important thing is that you're young and you're informed, and you know you want to give your listeners the ability to hear some of the latest events of different perspectives. And I think that that's always a wonderful thing. And, you know, podcasts for us, coming from the RFK camp was really the only outlet that we had, to be honest, that propelled our candidacy to the level that it was, because we were unfortunately getting shunned out of the media, mainstream media, to say the least, of the presidential campaign. And so podcasts and individuals like yourselves gave us platforms to get our messages out. You know, it's very, unique when you have residents or citizens that can sit at their desk at work or, driving in the car to listen to a podcast. They can't always, get to a TV. And so podcasts for us was really the catalyst to propel us to the level that we are. And so Bobby has always taught us to, be mindful of those podcasts that can help, lend voices to areas that otherwise, the mainstream media doesn't have the, capability or media strategies to propel an issue or candidacy to the levels that it has. And he was right. A few years later, now we see that podcasts are really trending to leading, media in a sense. And as you see podcasts casters growing, what do you see? Like news media personalities either like go from
dwindling
networks and going into their own separate individual podcasts once they leave those media networks. So yeah, thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to this conversation. And I'm sure that the media and, you know, how we were treated and where we are with the MAHA movement will come, you know, at some point in the conversation. But Bobby has always talked about healthy things. Even before his candidacy, Bobby's always talked about foods and the medicines that, you know, that we take. And also he's a lover of the environment. You know, Times Magazine had him years ago as Environmentalist of the Year, Man of the Year, for his work in the environment. This is like something that's new to him. Maybe because of the mainstream media now that has taken a liking to him somewhat. I mean, we still have ways that we have to go, but Bobby was always revered as a guy who loved the nature, who loved people. You know, going back to, you know, his father, with, you know, helping out, you know, various urban communities. Going back to Bobby helping out with the fish in our waters on the West Hudson, cleaning up waters, water stream systems. So this just evolved into what I believe was what his calling is, and making America healthy again. You know, we always talk about, you know, no matter what your religious beliefs are, right? Like God places you at the right time, not knowing the timing, but the right time where he sees fit. And with the presidential campaign ending and Bobby's platform and where he was at in his experience, it was just an holistic, you know, manifestation of God that put him, and he said it publicly before that, you know, he's prayed for years that God will put him into a place and a position that he can help people and help children. And I think that now is just one of those mark moments in our life that where you have, and now it's known more than ever, that there's these food dyes in what we digest. And there's these things that cause the ultra processed food that causes all these obesities, and the food that's like just think for a second, like for all of these years, right? Government through the FDA has allowed these things that all of a sudden Bobby Kennedy talks about it and is making moves in these places to get rid of them, that they're literally withdrawing them from the foods and what we digest. And it's like, I'm sitting there and I'm like watching this whole thing just take, you know, effect. And I'm like thinking back at myself, like, so all this time, like they were okay with this? Like nobody really thought to say, like, no, this is not good. When all the other countries,
I was just going to say all the other countries,
right, have the same thing. And it's like, why does America like allow this? But those things he's been talking about for decades, right? And the reason why it took a shift and a turn, because he reached a platform that, because of the podcasters and because of people allowing us to, you know, go on, you know, outlets that reached millions and thousands of people, the media shift started to change to where like he was now not only the Time Magazine's Man of the Year, or this Man of the Year, or this great guy who loves the environment, or this guy who's helping us clean up water, all of a sudden shifted to where like he's the bad, evil guy who wants to make sure that you are not healthy.
You know, I wanna add something to that, Mr. Hawley, because I think you had touched on a lot of good points. You know, especially speaking of the FDA authorizing these, you know, chemicals, dyes in our food that we see banned everywhere else. A lot of Americans don't trust the FDA. You know, we've seen back in 95 where they authorized oxypurdue pills to be used on mass scale, and then we saw a massive scale addiction plague across the United States that people are still recovering from to this day. So that lack of trust in the FDA is very strong. And, you know, I wanted to ask a question regarding, you know, what you said regarding Bobby is, you know, I agree with it. it really seems like when he changed from being an independent candidate to then saying like, hey, I see this opportunity to make America healthier again by working with Trump. Of course, I'm going to take that opportunity because my goal is to help make America healthy again. And then it seemed like there was just a lot more negative traditional media attacking him from there. Earlier you mentioned, podcasts are a big source of getting your guys' information out. And he even went on a Dr. Phil's podcast, which got over 1 million views. I mean, it's not just the videos being seen. You also got clips of that go around the internet, and his opinion is able to get out a lot more because of that. So I wanted to ask you, do you think that a lot of the negative pushback that we're seeing from the media is more just because of who is involved, aka President Donald Trump, since he's involved with RFK Jr. on this? Or do you really think, because to me, let me rephrase this question better. To me, what I'm seeing Robert F. Kennedy do makes sense. It literally all makes sense. Like, take out the dyes, strengthen up, make sure the FDA isn't corrupt like we've seen in the past, XYZ, multiple things. But then, a lot of what you see on the mainstream media is just still like, oh, even though this is arguably a good thing, here's why it also is not. So I wanted to ask you, do you think that mainstream media pushing that negative portrayal of, the good things RFK Jr. is trying to do is affecting the mission? Or do you think that because of, the changing landscape with media and people being able to get that information more themselves, that there's been more of a open-mindedness to these changes?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So let me take you to where we sit, right, or where we had to sit. And so we could take that a few different ways because it encompasses a lot of different other things to that, right? So where we had to sit at a time where we had to decide, okay, do we allow this presidential campaign to go forward? I mean, everybody can see numbers, everybody can see it that way, right?
Yeah.
So you had to take that's a piece, and then you also had to take a piece for here when you talk about the media's attention, right? Let's take that piece out carve that out over here for a second, right?
Yeah.
Whether you like Donald Trump or not, right? He attracts media attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So
absolutely,
it's one of those situations, right? Like, you like him or you don't, but he's gonna get that media attention, right? Like we go from a person over here or whatever type of influencer that's out there that may get some attention over here on a tweet, or over here may get something for an event that they had, or they said something on camera. No matter what Donald Trump does, a tweet, an event, or wherever he's at, he gets attention. And so Donald Trump, unlike us, we couldn't get media attention. And whatever media attention that we got was a bear in Central Park.
Yeah, a fraction.
But something that occurred 30, 40 years ago. In the meantime, just 10 years ago, you just said that he was the greatest guy in the world, right? Because he beat the environment, right? Or the water systems, right? So we had to look at this here, look at this here, look at that here, look at this here. And so we saw no pathway, Bobby. And let me tell you, this is probably, if I had to guess, in the top 4 things that Bobby's going through in his probably life. This was probably one of those top 4 or 5 things that was very difficult for him to do.
That's a big commitment and a big choice to make.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a Democrat, all his life. And, having to be treated by the Democratic Party what it is, and we can have another episode on the Democratic Party and how that was done. And that's kind of what opened it. And I'm a Democrat, and quite frankly, a little, upset about the way the Democratic Party is doing even now. But the way
I think that's a good thing to say for all 3 of us.
Yeah, the way that they treated him was just totally out of line. And so leaving the party and now having gone to independent as we were at that moment that you asked where your question is going, I'm going to answer that in a second. So where now we had to decide what's the best thing for America to do, and what's the best thing for all of these thousands and thousands, quite frankly, 1 million, right? Because we submitted petitions throughout the country, and we hit the 1 million mark more than any presidential candidate to sign a petition for. So I'll say 1 million, right? We had to and utilize the 1 million on record to where do we go from here, politically, to make sure that the advances, the causes that Bobby and the issues that he believed in, where do we advance that to, right? And so we had to figure that all out. He had to figure that all out. And so the best thing moving forward, and given who Trump was against, who folks, quite frankly, didn't even give him the opportunity to sit down and talk to in the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris and those and Biden and who knows him personally,
Yeah.
to take those issues that he believes in, the environment, clean water, healthy foods, clean medicine, safe and effective medicines, right? Like, was this group over here giving him that platform to talk about it? Or was this group over here committed to making sure that he had a platform and the support to utilize what he believes in to take that to another level, right? So you have all of these things and all of the media and all everything else. But at the end of the day, Bobby's one thing he's committed to the people that believe in him, right? And that's how he got into all of this anyway, right? This guy was just a lawyer, environmental lawyer from a very, wealthy family, from a very well-known family, right? So like, he didn't need to be involved in just all of this, right? But it's the parents, it's the moms, it's the dads who will reach out to him because of who he is and he's approachable. So then now take, where do these issues go? How can I propel this? And so that's how we landed with Trump.
Yeah.
The moment that Trump, unfortunately, and thank God, that he, wasn't hit by the bullet to severely cause him major damage, like really was a very troubling time for anybody, right? Just like anybody who go through that. I don't care where you are, Democrat, Republican, that is not
Party.
so like Trump called him from the hospital, and Bobby was involved in the first Trump administration. Folks don't know this. Bobby was in charge of the vaccine safety commission, which is a commission. Bobby was the chair, but at that time, and with Trump coming into his first term, and the team and the people he had around him, and those that were charged with the day-to-day, didn't really understand and know what the importance of this commission was. And so Big Pharma got a hold of the inner circle of Trump. So the pharmaceutical industry and the manufacturing, all those folks who create the vaccines and create those, those medicines in that space there, pharmaceutical companies got a hold of the inner circle of Trump and basically kiboshed it. And as years went on, Bobby and Trump kind of like became separated, right? There was some level of trust that was just like separated, right?
Yeah.
Because Bobby was into this and wanted to be relevant in this space, and that's why he thought he was selected. But Big Pharma at that point was just too big and too huge. And it was a task where the administration, I guess at that time, just felt like they just had much more bigger issues to deal with. And so with Bobby and Trump now talking at least and building kind of like that, relationship over again, and Bobby having to reflect like his dad, that just, was Trump dealing with this now, just getting shot, and his dad, all those things kind of come back, his uncle, and then, Martin Luther King, who his family was very, very close to, kind of like, sometimes things come together, like things just come together. And so that Bobby had to reflect. It was another reflection moment for him. And so Trump and him talk, and they just build this relationship over weeks and weeks, and they just build up and they continue to talk. And part of the conversation became the vaccines.
Yeah.
And with Trump, who he was 4 years ago, and learning some of the things and experience that Trump has had with people who he's very close to, Trump said, "No, Bobby, I believe you are right on some of these things, and I want to really look into this further now, because it's now touched my inner circle, right?" And things only sometimes occur when it like happens to your family or a friend.
Yep.
And so that 4 years ago until now, like Trump has actually had some close people that have experienced some things, and his own children who are our age, right? Like they are in kind of like these conversations of, growing kids and being healthy and stuff like that. So you have all those talks going on with the Trump family and people close to Trump, and then Bobby, who's always, made it a point to say, "Hey, these are a concern," kind of like happened. It just like kind of happened.
Like,
So from there, it's just like develop. We suspend, you know, you go to, you know, to Team Trump. But we create this merger, right? Because Bobby was able to get Democrats, Republicans, and independents with him. Folks who were tired of the independent party, folks who were tired of the Democratic Party, folks who were just shunned from the Republican. Like, you had all these dynamics going on all at one time. When I tell you guys this thing was like 24 hours, and it kind of like maybe it's now 22 hours now that we have to do.
Yeah.
But it was 24 hours. Slowed down just a little bit. But it's a 24-hour cycle, right? So you have all these things going on, and we bring together Team Kennedy under this banner where it's like, we're going to focus on how we make America healthy again. Like, that's our thing, right? Like, that is what we want to focus on. Trump is is running for president. If he's to win, the issues that Team MAHA, Team Kennedy believes in is now finally getting the platform that it deserves. And if you can see, and if you go back to from the moment we canceled our campaign to the moment that we talked about MAHA, the media now just started to put, the mainstream media just started to put MAHA on the front page of every news cycle.
You know, as they say,
just like, and I watched it like overnight, and I would tell about, I'm like, Fox and NBC is leading MAHA on not the second segment, not the third segment, not the story within the room, but you're leading with it. Like, so for us, it was like a culture shock. But he was ready. That's right. About, like, he was so ready, like, to dip. And then it just like every mom, every dad, even like the media personalities who are parents, just like their parents, like this is stuff that hits home, right? So even them, they just made this like so personal, right? So it just took on a life immediately on its own. And so that's how, you know, it was created, because it was finally the moment where what Bobby had prayed for all this time, to just get in a position and in the spotlight, to where these issues that have been occurring, you know, all these years, to make us the most unhealthiest country, quite frankly, in the world. And we spend more on our health insurance than any other country, right? In our hospital bills, and the industry is like, we spend so much, but yet we're the unhealthiest.
Yeah, like, where's the return?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. And that's kind of battling that transparency that RFK is trying to go right.
We still have, right, because these networks have to make money, right? These things still have to continue to operate on their side, right? So we had the pharmaceutical company, and we had, you know, food, ag, and all the industries that made us unhealthy, or did things that contributed to our unhealthiness, right? That still were, you know, big contributors to the advertisement and the media, these companies that, you know, help keep them alive. And so they don't go away. They're still there, but they are very now strategically maintained on what. So we still have those negative, you know, stories that are embellished, those things that continue to come out from, you know, the media, who again are backed up by these big, you know, contributors of mainstream media and big ag and big food. But I think the networks and the platform that the Trump, you know, team had in terms of just spotlight, like, it's just gone now. Like, everybody now is talking about make America healthy again. And it is a tremendous thing to watch, from not having nothing to here to, like, just overnight, just continuing to rise. And so make America healthy again is by far the best movement out there, both politically and
I would agree
for that. And so I want to get back to, you know, the question that you asked, like, how it was evolved with MAHA, and that's kind of like the story.
So, yeah, the origin behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's awesome. And you know, I think a lot of people don't realize the level of advocacy that RFK did prior to really getting into the Trump camp. And I think, as you were saying, Democrats definitely did it wrong by pushing him to the side and pushing him out. Because really, like a lot of individuals in my circles and in Muhammad circles, we do value, health, and seeing a lot of these initiatives and the level of transparency that MAHA has allowed for us to kind of really see and understand what are in these foods, I think has made our lives better as, the months have going on. And I'm looking forward for the continued initiatives to come down, and also more transparency, because a lot of people don't understand or know what these pharmaceuticals are doing to you, as well as what are these food additives doing to you.
And Muhammad was talking a little bit about the FDA earlier, and to take it back a minute on how Bobby really kind of understood how the inner workings of these governments work, is that Bobby was an environmental attorney, and so a lot of his work was always up against, the FDA, the CDC. These inter agencies of the federal government, interconnected agencies in the federal government. So he sat on the lawyer side of defending, people in the community like you and I. Like, if you read the MAHA case, if you read some of these, cases that, had these billion dollar settlements, offerings now because of the work that Bobby Kennedy did in court. A lot of these settlements that you see on TV, like, hey, if you have been in this area during this time, and that was Bobby. Like, I mean, like you see the one now going on in Ohio, right? The rail crash and it happened in Ohio.
It'll leak into the river, correct?
Bobby, like, there was all of these, elected officials going to, the city there and visiting, but Bobby visited. But then one thing about Bobby with the environment and people, once he sees that, like, he's going to get to work. And so, like, Bobby was working behind the scenes to get, lawsuits and these people some level of relief because they were affected.
Yeah.
And so his education, why he has a law degree and bachelor's and all of that, his education in how these government agencies were working was by him being an attorney helping residents fight up against. And so the information, the things that he would be able to get through court documents allowed him and his team and his experts to kind of like say, whoa, like, this is actually going on in the FDA. So on day one, and why things are happening so rapidly and fast of dismantling all of this, it's because he already had years and decades of knowledge of what actually was going on in this agency here with this board, with this direction, and with that. And so it just like kind of like fitted. So I say all to say like he knew that, okay, this was the moment that I need to take, that no more, being the lawyer right over here, but like I could actually be in control of pointing the right people in the right positions to make sure that these things no longer affect. And even before he took office, you started to see Lunchables being removed from the lunch school program.
Yeah.
You started to see like companies strategically started to step away right before he got, and then and even the pharmaceutical ads, like, take this drug, but it has this. Do you see those often now? No, they're starting to leave. No. Right. And we haven't even banned pharmaceutical ads, but we put the message out. Right. Yep. We put the message out. Hey, we coming to ban but do you know how every other commercial segment is like, okay, this drug and then this drug. If you do
it's basically the most common commercial out nowadays.
Starting to see, yeah, because they young.
Yeah.
Like, and it's bad. Like, why would we allow? Like, wow, like this is why people don't trust the government.
Yeah, no,
they did everything they possibly. They don't trust the government. This guy over here is talking about, hey, this is not good for you. Like, these things are not good, but you're crazy. You're the bad guy. You are not the guy who should be talking about this. But yet he actually was the good guy to talk about. He should have been talking about that. But because behind these advertisements and commercials were the people who wanted to continue to be a part of this revolving door, you would have people who would work in pharmaceutical companies, medicine and vaccine manufacturers, work in these corporate positions. And then when they would leave those corporate positions, go into the federal agencies on boards and commissions that make the decisions for these drugs that will come through their agency, it's like a revolving door, and then they will come out of the agency and they go into another pharmaceutical. So there's a revolving door, and his goal was to just chop that down, and he's correct, and that
chopping that down,
right. So like, who's not the bad guy? He's actually the good guy here, but you guys were getting away with billions and trillions of dollars over decades and decades by making people sick.
Money's a powerful thing.
It is.
And there's a saying I like about this, I think reflects good on RFK situations, that there's no such thing as bad press. So if these people the media try to paint him in a bad light, I think President Trump's the best example of this, honestly. Then back in 2016, he was polling less than 1% until the mainstream media decided to give Trump unlimited air coverage because they hated him. And now he's become one of the only two presidents to ever do 2 non-consecutive terms, which is a historical feat in itself. And I think we're seeing something similar with RFK. I'll use this to segue, Mikhail. I know you've got some few questions you want to ask, but it really does seem like, speaking anecdotally as well, I read back during the initial election for 2024. I learned and heard more about RFK's message from him being kind of ostracized out of the government, out of the Democratic Party, and I thought, well, it's just because he shared an opinion on health that they didn't all agree with as a party. If these people are trying to shut him out because he's saying opinions they disagree with, I want to hear what these opinions are. You know what I mean? Like, who are we to determine what opinion is right or wrong on a political party level? If there's something these guys don't want him saying, there's a good reason why they don't want him saying it. And if you follow the money, that's the reason.
I mean, it's definitely it is the reason, right? Because you had the lobbyists and the corporations and the PACs that were contributing to these parties, unfortunately. And like Bobby was the bad guy, but I could just remember 10 and 15, 20 years ago, like the Democratic Party was literally inviting Bobby to come on the campaign trail with close races that Democrats were having in these states. And he would come as the Kennedy, family dynasty, guy to come out on the trail with them. I mean, even in New Jersey.
Yeah.
I had a mayor come up to me at an event that I had Bobby at in New Jersey, and he said to me, "Hey, I remember Bobby coming out in New Jersey. We actually had dinner together at an Italian restaurant, and he had spaghetti and meatballs. But he was coming out to support when Corzine was running for the United States Senate in New Jersey, right? And like the guy remembered that, like he actually came here to, campaign and rally and get Democrats all over the state excited, for John Corzine, who was running for, United States Senate. So Bobby was invited to all of these places to help Democrats years and years ago. But the moment he got some leverage, and now more in particular in COVID, right, where he was taken off of Facebook, deplatformed on certain places, like it wasn't this thing. And then the moment that Trump gets elected, it was like all of them come and say, "Oh no, we're sorry." And Trump's winning races, and they're contributing to, different initiatives that the Trump administration is doing, and it's just a terrible thing of what occurred. But I think more than anything is that, and my focus every day is Bobby, right? Like there's so much that goes on in the world. There's different cabinet secretaries, and you can have your opinion on it, but I just want to make sure that my guy continues to be able to be in a position, because he doesn't even need to do any of this. He doesn't have to do any of this. Trust me. But because of who his heart is and what he's seen and what has happened, everybody doesn't have that name. Everybody doesn't have that ability, and everybody doesn't have the guts to do what he's doing, because it is very dangerous.
Exactly. And it takes a lot.
And it takes a lot of courage, right? And so to withstand and to see stuff like be said about him and written about him, I'm like, y'all don't even know what y'all talking about. See, now the other side could be like, y'all probably need to shut up because you don't even.
Yeah, I would agree. They
get behind somebody who has just like that courage and we don't care about what's right.
You're going to lose that battle.
This makes it much more easier, but I'm just very glad that he is being put in a position and shining the light on quite frankly, things that have been going on for decades, and like everybody was okay with that. That like this
Right.
like the norm that is like everybody was okay with everything that was going on, like this ultra processed food, these dyes, these vaccines who had aluminum in them, right? All he was saying is like, hey, you could take the vaccine. I'm just letting you know that, like, have you read the inserts? Right? Like, let's take out the long, because like when the doctor comes and say, hey, you need this, nobody's asking where's the inserts, right? That long page of inserts. And like there's aluminum in the vaccine, man. There's aluminum
About safe fact.
in the
Safe.
like no like and everybody was okay with this. Like I've had vaccines. There's some I haven't and some I won't take. Right? It's my choice, right? He was just saying it doesn't have to be mandated. It should be a choice.
Which I want to just add is a very normal thing to say, that it is
Right.
your choice to do something in the country free.
And he gives the story to where there came a point in a time where he grew up to where he saw in 1989, right? So like in the 60s and 70s, you know, where he was growing up in the 50s and 60s, it was like people weren't fat, obese. People didn't have allergies. Like even when we grow up, guys like our age, 30 to 45, like maybe we had one or two obese kids in the classroom with us, or or allergies, but like everybody has allergies now, and it just happened, and it happened at 1989 when the vaccine manufacturers and others were given immunity. You know, if you were injured, like you couldn't sue. It's something if you were, they had an effect to the, and they created like what they call this, like this vaccine court, which is paid for by the federal government. But the process, the bureaucracy to get into the vaccine court, to submit it and finally get heard in the vaccine court, it's like years later. So like some people even die in the interim. Right. So it's like this creative vaccine court where if you're injured by a vaccine, it's the federal government. So you can only go here. You can't go to the vaccine or sue. Right. You can go here, but like it's like 6 and 7 years waiting. And it was really no real data inside the federal agencies that really showed the, effects that everybody, like, even when you take regular medicine, right, there's an effect to it. Some people take it, it's okay, but you may have a reaction to it, right? So it's like there was never no real data, but something happened in 1989 where that when they were given, the immunity, and so that's when you started to see in the 90s and in the early 2000s, like I think it's like 1 in 100 kids in the 60s and 70s that was obese. Now it's like 1 in every 3. Like that's a problem.
No, it's definitely a continuing problem. And, do you see down the road, with the transparency piece for RFK, do you see kind of America's, how they feel about the FDA, the CDC, continuing to go down, and hopefully, if MAHA is something that stays after Trump, you see that kind of being a formidable movement to change really the structure within the FDA and CDC. And could you also see that immunity case getting overturned or getting relooked at as well down the
So I'm always like looking beyond, like I'm where you are now, right? Like we're in, but I'm like, okay, I'm at like 28 now. Like my job, my movement, where I'm at, I'm at 28, I'm at 30, I'm at 32, I'm at 35, I'm at year 2040 now. Like that's where I'm at, right? Like I'm like, we're here, all right, good. I handled that, but I'm like, okay, what do we do in 28? What do we do in 2030? What do we do in 2035? Like I'm there, and so it's like, and sometimes I have to pull myself back, right, to think about, okay, what do we do, and don't get too fast down the road. But the thing that brings me back to some level of reality is like, okay, we've made the mark. Paying attention. We've got some stone in the game. The foundation has been laid. So my hope is that whatever happens in 28 or 30 or 32, that the MAHA movement and the things that are that he's putting in place in the government and will continue to take place in the government, that he's a part of it in some capacity. You know, but the movement will forever be cemented in history. And so I'm there years later to think about some of the things that we should be thinking about on how we continue to, keep it moving. But it's forever cemented. Now, what they do internally in the governments, I'm hoping that, now that these things have come to light and there's some changes that are being made, because 4 years technically is not enough.
Yeah.
And so that's why and the team is just going as, strategically, scientifically, appropriately, as best speed as they can, right? Nothing's ever rushed, but it's at an ultimate every day, make sure we have this done and this is being taken care of and that's being taken care of, so that timing is not lost, because right, he's only been appointed for 4 years, right? So we have, and quite frankly, as the HHS secretary, has a lot to do within that 4 years. And we're hoping that no matter if you're a Republican or Democrat or independent who comes into office within the administration, that this be a real thing set in stone here to make America's internally through the federal government healthy. But if not, like, there's a lot of other stuff that has already been out there now that we believe will continue, and people will start paying attention. Everybody's going to the gym now. Everybody's like a thing. Like that whole getting the information out, and what we should be doing is out of the bat. Like, media couldn't even stop it. Vaccine companies are even now saying internally to many of us and others that, like, they want to pull out of the game because they realize, like, the blood stopped. And it's like, folks was like, well, ain't you going to lose money? And they're like, quite frankly, it's just making us lose money.
Right. No, I would definitely agree with that.
Muhammad and Michael, I always go back to what you said. Like, people always had a question about government, and but then you see the movies, you read the things, and it's like, but to actually see it and like these things be like revealed and changed, and it's like, you guys really allowed this to go wrong? I always go back to that point, because it's like, how did you allow this to go on?
And it could have continued if, Trump wasn't in office, if RFK never was able to kickstart
up until, even today. But they went so hard, even when going through his confirmation.
I remember watching that.
Every single thing, like, it just was like tainted. But once you got the votes, and once you got a man like Bobby who just like, listen, we got a goal in mind. Our goal was that we got to get there and do what we got to do. All this other stuff is just backroom noise, because at the end of the day, everybody who's making the noise in the backroom is a part of what has been happening to get us to be the most unhealthiest persons on earth. And that's
right. And Jamel, I also want to ask, so as being with the MAHA movement and with RFK, what have been some of the best impacts and benefits that you have seen, and also some of the initiatives that have had the most wide-ranging impact and benefit for constituents?
For me, and I'm probably sure it's for Bobby, because this is how we actually met some years ago and how we got connected. I think it's the moms that actually finally had a voice and finally have been part of, seeing what was happening to their kids in their development stages and to who they are. Like, the moms have been screaming about this for decades. Like, those moms who watch what their doctors do and watch what they feed their kids, like, on a day-to-day, who will not allow them. They've been out there for like decades, like way before Bobby and way before you and I, right? Like, they've been out there saying, hey, listen, like, this is going on with my kid. This is going on with my kid. Why is my kid changed to this? So for me, it's like, if it's not an initiative, but it's good to see that moms and dads who are parents who have been advocating for like these types of things finally get a voice and a platform to like really, you know, get credit for something that they've been talking about for many years. And so one of your questions, I believe, was just the MAHA and the MAHA Commission. Like, those are people who are a part of that commission. Those moms, those dads, those doctors who, you know, realize that, hey, I can't keep taking money from, you know, pharmaceutical companies just to provide them this, but they're like my patient actually, after giving them this, like, this is not right, and this shouldn't be right. So you have those doctors who weren't afraid to come out and be a part of like, hey, we need this, like, this is not right, we need to change it, or they question those people who are professional licensed people, have gone through the process to obtain their license, who unfortunately did not decide to continue pushing the narrative of like, this is okay. Those people are part of it because they've experienced, you know, a lot of what was going on. And so, you know, the MAHA, you know, report, and there's another one coming out, you know, soon. Those people on the commission are doing a great job of really just getting to the bottom of what's been happening for decades, and put us on a trajectory that is ultimately supposed to make us healthy and live longer, and, you know, bring down the burden of our healthcare costs. You know,
There was something said by a person I follow on X, and I think it actually puts it in well, especially with what you're saying, Mr. Holly, with mothers and parents being such a large part of the commission, is that they were saying that, you know, until you have a kid, you know, when it comes to giving yourself the vaccine, giving yourself food, you know, you're willing to make excuses for yourself, but when it comes to your children, you want better for your children than you do for yourself. You know, I mean, all of a sudden, the food that you were eating without a problem, you're asking yourself, is this good for them? I mean, they're kids, you know what I mean? I don't want them eating the same garbage I am. Like, is this vaccine good for them? I don't want the off chance that this is something I can give my children that will damage them for the rest of their lives. So, you know, it's interesting and fulfilling to hear that mothers and parents are such a large part of the commission, because I do think that, well, that's an important part. Well, MAHA is for the future of American health. You know, we want to make sure that we have the people who are involved in the future of America, you know, helping out with it.
yeah, correct. And I just want to make sure that I got it right, and to give you the schedule of doses, and I want to compare it to our chart here that we had in
Is this the amount of doses that BIV's get for?
I want to get it down to the most exact one, because you have to take the years of what was done when and what was done, you know, back then. And so in the 1970s, there was between 8 to 14 doses, depending if you were, you know, depending on, you know, the disease that was out there, or the moms, or, you know, different diseases. But by age 18 in the 1970s, there were between 8 into 14 doses by age 18, right? So 8 to 14 between 0 day birth, 1 day birth, one day year old, right? Because you become 1 year old,
Right.
to when you're 18, it was 8 to 14 doses, right? Now, there's 76.
Wow. I wasn't,
Wow.
you know, so just coming from a layman, let's say somebody who is very pro-vaccine, they come in and say, well, the reason why there's more vaccines is because we've established more medicine. What would you counter to that, Mr. Hawley?
Because there's more medicine, you said?
because the medicine has developed further and now we're able to tackle more diseases and viruses by having vaccines that we didn't have before. So, some people would say, well, that's the reason why we have more vaccines now is because we've developed more that allow us to take care of more diseases. But of course, you got people on the other side who say, well, the reason why we have more vaccines isn't just because of that. We were fine before, clearly, and now we're facing these new issues that people are linking towards vaccines. So I wanted to ask what your opinion is on the idea of, of the argument. We've developed medicine further to create vaccines now for diseases we didn't have before. And how would you counter that for the argument of why we take so many more shots now than we did in the past?
As long as the vaccines are safe and effective.
Yeah.
Like COVID-19 vaccine, clearly, if it didn't stop the virus from continuing to develop, right? It was supposed to stop and help right? But it wasn't safe and effective.
Yeah.
It wasn't effective, right? So if a vaccine is safe and effective, fine, right? Like, and you have the ability to make that choice and not nothing be mandated onto you.
Yeah.
Or, right, like, you see this schedule, you see that this is here and it's clear, but you shouldn't be mandated to take it, right?
Yeah.
So from 4 to 6, 7 doses back then to now being like on a schedule that's recommended to you.
Yeah.
Because, right, it's recommended, right? To like 76, that's a lot. And
yeah, that is a big jump.
To put in your body and try to,
like 13-year-olds, HPV, like those are like vaccines that have now shown to cause cancer, in some cases, legal cases. Like no 12 or 13-year-old should be taking that. Or being recommended to take that. That's a sexual transmit. You know what I mean? Like, you understand? So I would say, listen, no one's against good medicine, safe medicine, great medicine. There's been great medicine that you've taken, I've taken, Michael's taken, Muhammad, our audience out here that's taken medicine that has helped. But there's been vaccines and medicines that people who have unfortunately reacted into a very, very bad state of affairs. And that's kind of how I got involved in the medical freedom movement, and Bobby's gotten involved in the medical freedom movement, where parents have come and says, my child was given this and this happened right after that.
Yeah.
And
like you can tell me that vaccine didn't cause that, but I'm very hard pressed to think that the thing that they received a day before this didn't cause it to happen.
Right. And it wasn't food, right?
Yeah.
We react to food sometimes. Like, okay, we may have upset stomach and a few days is over, but like food doesn't make you like have these like life-changing moments.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And there's a reason why whatever now, that number is dependent on where you are in the country, that have autism.
Yeah.
Like when you and I are growing up, like where was that at?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. When,
okay. The argument to some folks in media is like, well, vaccines are not linked to autism. Okay, like let's just take that on the face of the table. Like if you just wanted to have that argument, right? No problem. So what is the cause of autism? And then folks like, well, it's not vaccines. Okay.
And what is it?
What's the problem?
It's like it's not vaccines, and what it has to be unfurling,
right. So a man who tries to like say, let's look into it, let's bring some doctors around, let's bring some professionals around, let's try to like figure this out. Oh no, but you're you're not the right guy to do it, to find out.
Yeah.
Okay. So find out
people that are going to do it.
Clearly, autism, unfortunately, has occurred in our communities, and it's rising. And I've seen some families go through some very, very hard times, man. That's not something easy to deal with. And those parents, that's why I said those mothers and those fathers, I commend so much, because they've been talking about this and wanting this. Like Bobby's like a hero to them, because they've been saying about what has caught, and they can kind of like backtrack what happened with their kid and when this was done. And it's like we're trying to find out what's going on with autism, but like, you're not the guy to do it. So, but like for 20 and 30 years now, as this thing has continued to rise, like nobody is trying to figure out what the heck's going on with it.
And then all of a sudden somebody says, let's figure it out. But then there's an issue with that. Like, come on. It's clear you guys don't want this to actually come out into the light.
Yeah. So that report's coming out soon. And people don't have to agree with it or not. But I mean,
it's important. The information is actually
want to have, information. And, it's up to you to decide, what you feel. But, he's going to provide you with the information. And again, Bobby has to have to do this. This is not something like he, has to do. Right. But because exactly on doing because of what he's prayed for and because of what he's seen, he's now in a position to help, change some of these things that have been occurring. And I think he's doing a wonderful job. And I think he's going to continue to do a wonderful job. And all the listeners who are out there and the people that are interested in MAHA, continue to sign up to HHS website, follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and also X, and all the social media platforms. Continue to follow Secretary Kennedy on all the major platforms, and continue to follow the MAHA movement on all the social media platforms, because it's positive information, always sometimes not good news, but it's positive information for each and every one to take a look at and to read and assess and ultimately make your own decisions. But it's coming from a good place. It's coming from the heart. It's coming from dedicated people. It's coming from people who want to cut away at all of what's been occurring to make us the most unhealthiest humans on the planet, and also the most, costly healthcare systems in our in the world. That we finally have people inside in the federal government and in these agencies and in that department to really, really provide valuable information to the people of America. And I think that everyone, if I can give one piece of advice, they should take heed to it and to listen and to pay attention to it every single day.
No, definitely. I mean, HHS is putting out great information. We know that RFK and you and all the other staffers there are doing the God's work and making sure that America is healthy, and also that, as you're saying, parents on that commission, making sure that, the stable home is also being able to umbrella and know exactly what their children are eating, and as well what they're eating.
I'm Team Bobby Kennedy still. I'm on Team Bobby Kennedy team.
Yep. No, regardless. I mean, even before he jumped into the spotlight, I, knew of him and his political leanings, and I was very familiar with him. I actually was pretty excited for him when he did get jump into the ring, but was devastated when the Democrats did him.
Yeah, like we could talk about that at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Oh,
and look out as maybe like the 2028 presidential elections continue. But I want to thank all of you for your team behind you as well to get me here and to have this conversation. I hope it was fruitful, but I would love to talk about from politics too with the parties. And I think that's a whole different segment that I can enlighten you on, because being on the inside and seeing how some of this stuff goes on the inside, and what you guys, have just on the surface of just seeing it by media or online, but there's so much more that occurs. So hopefully, I could come back at a later time to talk about just the politics of the party affiliations and stuff like that. But, I really had a good time with you guys today, and hopefully it was informational for you and your listeners.
No, thank you.
No, you gave us some great information.
I was going to say thank you, Mr. Ollie. It has been nice. We'd love to have you on again. We'll keep in contact with you about that. And I definitely think right now is a good time to add a little bit of a very famous American quote from Bobby's brother, the late deceased and great in American history, JFK. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I think the Make America Healthy Again, Make America Healthy Again initiative is a great way to say that. Like the country is doing its work. We see Bobby doing work to try to make the country healthier. But at the end of the day, we're all self-responsible for what we can do for ourselves and for our nation as well. You know what I mean? And just to all the listeners out there, you know what I mean? Just try to stay positive, guys. Do what you guys can to be the best of Americans you can. Let freedom and liberty run through you like a buffalo in a grass field.
Yeah, that came from the great John F. Kennedy, Bobby's uncle, but Bobby Sr.'s brother. And, you know, that is something that I think that that was a very good quote to take from Muhammad, that was good. That was good because it's like, you know, what can we do for our country? What can we do
Yeah.
to help our country? And I think
We are the country. We, the people, are the
Right.
country.
Right.